Welcome in Tuesday edition Oxford Exxon podcast. Chase Parham and Neal McCready, Clark Ford Studio here with you this morning. Ole Miss and Mississippi State from the Pavilion tonight. The Rebels, I think 17-3. Is that right now? 17-3, 4-3 in the
Yeah.
SEC at this point. They face the Bulldogs, who are 3-4 in the SEC, but pretty good team too. They still have some postseason aspirations as well. So we'll discuss the Rebels and the Bulldogs from the Pavilion. We'll look at some NFL stuff today. Just a huge ratings number on the NFC game over the weekend. I have not seen the AFC number released yet, but the NFC number, as expected, very large. And then a little NBA today too. So we'll hit several different topics for you on today's show. Show brought to you every day by the Oxford Exxon Highway 6 West in Oxford Beer Cave locally. Got the Super Bowl coming up here in a matter of days. Got a lot of things going on. Reasons to stop in, pick up all your alcoholic beverages there at the Beer Cave here locally in Oxford. And remember, they're up and down I-55 throughout North Mississippi as well. So no matter where you are, there is a Blue Sky location nearby in Mississippi, including the Superstore going up in Macomb right now. So take advantage of all those things there with the Oxford Exxon and Blue Sky. And again, we soon we'll be back in the Clark Ford studio.
We will. Clark Ford is in Amory, Mississippi, 662-257-1900. Call that number. Ask for Corey Clark. Tell Corey what Ford product you're looking for. He'll send you a quote within 15 minutes in business hours. It's right to the bottom line. There's no hassle, no haggle. You get your quote. The rest is up to you. You shop that quote around. You can do what I've done, what I recommend that you do, and that's hop into a Clark Ford today. 662-257-1900. Guest join on the Campbell Clinic hotline. And I just lost the reader for that, so it's going to take me a minute to find it, but I'll find it momentarily. The Campbell Clinic is in Oxford now, 2608, testing my memory here, 2608 South Lamar Boulevard, Suite 102, just across the street from the cottages at Hooper Hollow. Campbell Clinic provides full-service orthopedic care, everything from sports medicine to foot and ankle surgery to spine and total joint care to pediatric orthopedics, physical therapy, and more. To book an appointment, go to campbellclinicoxford.com or call 901-759-3111. Walk-ins always welcome at the Campbell Clinic, Monday through Friday, 7:30 a.m. to 4 p.m.
Big game for Carson today. He have some nerves this morning. How we feeling?
I don't know. I did not get a chance to talk to him. He does have a big game tonight, but he was going to school early. They have some sort of yoga thing that he goes to on occasion, so he was scrambling to that. He's not really the type to be nervous, so Carson's really laid back. He'll be pretty intense today, but I don't know that he'll be super nervous. I'll be a lot more nervous about it than he will be, I'm sure.
That happens with parents and kids and whatnot, doesn't it? It's like
yeah. I don't.
You just thought you were nervous when it was you back in high school or college or something, didn't you? Like, that's not.
Yeah. I mean, I can remember getting nervous before games and stuff, but he doesn't seem to. But now, he's a much better player than I ever was at that age. I mean, I was okay, but I wasn't ever a super impactful player on my team. He's a pretty impactful player on his team. He's good. He's on a good team, and they play Hernando tonight, and the winner wins district. And because of the way the bracket's drawn up, the winner also gets home field all the way through the North half final. So it's a big game. I mean, but
you would hypothetically get Goliath on your home field later on.
Yeah, and they've actually lost a game this year, so at least they're more.
Have they really?
Yeah, they lost to I can't remember who beat them.
District game?
No, but it was this in-state. A team
Okay.
inside the state beat them on penalties, I think. So they can lose. It's very rare, but they can lose. So that makes them at least a little more mortal in the eyes of the kids, perhaps. But
there is some mental thing to
way
that.
away. I mean, you still got to play. I mean, you still got to play.
Hernando's good.
Hernando's really good. Yeah, they got to beat Hernando. The one thing, I mean, not to make this all about high school soccer because nobody gives a damn outside of me, but it's really improved just over a couple of years. Like Oxford played Pontotoc on Saturday, and Pontotoc's really good. They're really good. They only lost once all year before the game Saturday. They're good. There's 2 or 3 really good teams in the district. Hernando, DeSoto Central's good. Starkville's really good. Clinton obviously is very good. Madison Central. I mean, there's Brandon. There's a lot of really good soccer programs, boys soccer programs in the state. It's why I wrote. I was talking in 10 Thoughts the other day about your battle with the women's basketball coach at Ole Miss, and I mean I get where she's coming from. I mean that's her world, and she feels like it should get more attention than it does, that it should get more passion than it does. And I get it. I understand that sentiment completely. I mean, it's like I wrote this in 10 Thoughts. If OHS was playing a game with this much at stake in basketball or football or baseball tonight, it'd be a big crowd. There'd be a lot of people there. And it's senior night on top of that. And this is a really talented senior class. But it is what it is. I mean, it's going to be friends and family, mostly parents, some siblings, maybe a girlfriend or two. I mean, a couple of grandparents. That's who's going to be there, and you can let that eat you up, or you can just sort of accept it. I mean, I wish that there was D1 college soccer for men, because I don't think Carson would be the SEC level. That probably would open him up to that, mid-level, the Middle Tennessees, the Southern Misses of the world. He's probably in a world where that happened, he'd probably get those kind of opportunities if he wanted them. So, I get it. That's why I've had several people call and like, are you guys like going to take her behind the woodshed? I'm like, no, because while I don't think she handled it particularly great, I understand the sentiment. I wouldn't have ever expressed it that way. I wouldn't have gone after the general public or the whole town of Oxford, but I understand the place it came from. I get it.
Yeah. No, I mean, look, niche sports being important. I mean, I've spent 2 decades being a proponent of college baseball. Yeah, sure. I mean, completely on the deal here. I mean,
and it's grown. I mean, it's bigger. College baseball is bigger than it was 5 years ago. I mean, it was when you got so into it at a younger age, it was truly a niche sport, and it still kind of is. But it's more mainstream than it was 10 years ago. Women's basketball is more mainstream than it was 10 years ago. But stuff takes time, and that patience is there's a reason they say patience is a virtue, I guess. I mean, not everybody is super patient. So I get it.
Yeah, well, she was not aware of what she was doing, but Carly Ann actually has her lightning bolt pants on today, so she's indirectly supporting. So we'll see how the day goes there.
Well, tell Carly Ann that I certainly appreciate it.
Yeah. So
I've been every team I cheered for the last 3 or 4 days has lost, and so I'm hopeful that streak.
You got it all out of the way.
I'm hopeful that all the losing is out of the way. Yeah, maybe we can get this one. So.
Joseph with a question that it's a good question. He says, will the benches be flipped next year in basketball? I was watching the Texas game last night, and they had the student section behind the benches, and it looks very cool. If Keith was correct on what he told me, Texas will have to change that. I know I haven't seen Texas set up, so if it's not exactly what I'm having pictured in my head, never mind. But there is an SEC league policy that the student section has to be a certain distance from the visiting bench or from the benches in general. If you'll notice at Ole Miss, it's why even when they have students on the baseline coming around, it has to stop a certain distance from where the visiting bench would be. It's why they put a bunch of player parents and people like that in that kind of that baseline end section down there. So, no, at Ole Miss, they're going to flip the cameras, they'll reorient the court, flip the cameras, but not move benches, students, anything like that. So it'll face the students, but they will still be on opposite sides of the benches. So that's a good question. I don't know if the Big 12 has a different rule, no rule, or if that's something Texas will have to address as they come into the league. So
they lost to Houston last night, right? I
never even saw a final, honestly.
I had it on.
I'm assuming because nobody even really talked about it.
I wasn't really paying attention to it, but I flipped to it for a little while. I was kind of watching NBA stuff, and they hit a lull, and I turned to. I turned to that, and I want to say Houston was up like 14, and so I never paid much attention to it after that.
Houston wins 76-72 in OT.
Oh wow, how about
Yeah.
that?
The Cougars are 19-2. Texas is 14-7. Houston has the longest streak of weeks in the top 25 by far. It's like 3 times almost what somebody else is. I'll tell you though, I've watched them a little bit and I've read some and seen it. The NCAA tournament may be a crapshoot, but I am not betting against the Huskies right now. UConn is a freaking beast. Like they are
Yeah,
playing really well right now.
yeah, they are. They're really good. That the Houston versus Texas thing is, if that were an NBA series, you'd never even think about it. Houston would win the series 5-6 games, but the NCAA tournament is such a coin flip sometimes, man. You're better than them for one night,
Yeah.
or a couple of guys getting hot, and that's that. And history shows that you're better than them. It's
Yeah.
nice.
If it was an
Crazy.
if it was an NBA style playoff bracket, give me the Huskies to win the national title. Let's put it that way.
Oh, for sure, for sure.
Yeah. You gotta go into stores and beat them and win 4 out of 7. I don't know. I'm not sold
tough.
On that
It'd be tough.
because I don't know how good Xavier is or isn't, but they just hammered the Musketeers the other night, and I went, whoa, that was a dismantling in a lot of ways. So anyway, there's our national basketball talk for the day. Most of only 2 games tonight, as we said yesterday. You've got. Oh, by the way, I think is it tonight that the baseball team is doing their Meet the Rebels?
Yes.
Probably should know that. I think it is tonight prior to the game. So if
It
anybody's
is.
curious in that or wants to be involved in that, I think that is in the concourse before tonight's game.
That is correct.
So Mississippi State 14-6 overall, 3-4 in the SEC. From a league standpoint, they lost at South Carolina 68-62, which at the time was kind of a weird loss, but because of what Carolina's done since, no shame in that. They beat Tennessee at home, huge win, 77-72 against the Vols. They lost at home to Alabama, 82-74. They lost away in Rupp, 90-77. They beat Vanderbilt 68-55 at home. Lost to Florida in one that I thought they kind of let get away last week in Gainesville, 79-70. And then they beat Auburn in that kind of rock fight, 64-58, where they showed a lot of toughness. They were really good inside. They took advantage of Auburn having kind of some smaller perimeter players and things there to win that game, and kind of controlled that game for a good bit of the second half. So it's gone home away pretty much script for them for the most part, outside of losing that game to the Crimson Tide. Alabama playing very well in conference play. Just in general, what's the nervousness? What's the matchup that should scare Ole Miss tonight?
State's pretty good rebounding the basketball. That's Ole Miss's deal.
34th in the country in offensive rebound percentage, by the way.
Yeah, so you've got to keep them off the glass. Like Josh Hubbard, the former Ole Miss commit. By the way, there's a narrative out there that Chris Beard and them didn't give him attention. It was over. When Ole Miss fired Kermit, when Kermit quit, whatever, that deal was done. State moved in. State never stopped recruiting him. And once there was a change, Jan's got his guy. He's not a great shooter, but he's a really good scorer. He's kind of fearless. He'll attack you. He can shoot it enough. He can get to the glass. He's a good player. I think Ole Miss is going to win tonight. I think Ole Miss is going to win in Oxford. They're going to lose in Starkville. That's what I believe. And you really have to talk me out of that. But the big thing with them is they have some bigs, Jeffries and some of those guys that are pretty solid players. Not great players, but they're solid players. Tulo is a good player, really good player. You can't let them start dominating the glass. Ole Miss has to stay. They don't have to win the rebounding battle. It's kind of like Texas A&M. They don't have to win the rebounding battle, but they've got to stay in it. They can't get blown out on the boards and win unless they just shoot the lights out. If they do that, then fine. But if Ole Miss shoots the way they typically do at home, which is well, and are respectable.
There'll be a big crowd tonight. It'll be packed.
If they're respectable on the boards, they'll get it done. But look, State's played a hard schedule. They've already played Alabama. They've played Auburn. They've played Tennessee. They've played Kentucky. They've played Florida. I know I'm supposed to say Florida sucks, but I mean Florida did get a big win over State. Um, they've gotten the win over Vandy like Ole Miss did. Vandy's
Well, and
bad.
they've sneaky played some teams that were pretty good in the non-con. You look up and Northwestern, good team, beat them 66-57 in a neutral site. They played North Texas, which is a top 100 team. They beat them 72-54 in a semi-home game. I guess that was like a Tupelo or Biloxi or something. I don't know. They have played a very, very, very good schedule, which is why I think Ken Palm has them with a pretty good ranking right now. Yeah, 32 currently.
Yeah, they're in the 40s in the net. They would be in the tournament today if the tournament started. I think Ole Miss probably would be too. Yeah, I mean, again, they're solid. They're not great. There's nothing about them when you watch them that makes you just. Now they will defend you. They will play physically. The whistle matters with them. If it's a pretty light whistle, in other words, if they're really letting them play, they'll get physical and they can kind of intimidate you. A tight whistle, they can get in foul trouble. They don't have that electric scorer, but they have guys who can. It's a deep team. Jans is a really good coach. Look, it's the SEC. There's two bad teams. There's
Yeah.
maybe three bad teams. Missouri's having a struggle year. Arkansas is an absolute disaster. If you believe some of the rumors around Arkansas, it's crazy. And then Vanderbilt's just not good. But everybody else, the other 11, they're perfectly capable of beating each other on a given night. And so you've got to show up and you've got to do what you do well, and you've got to minimize what you do poorly. And for Ole Miss, that's very clear. It's shoot the ball well, don't turn it over, and don't get mutilated on the boards. You don't have to win rebounds. You just got to stay in it. You cannot. Mississippi State can't finish the game with 18, 19 offensive rebounds and you expect to win. That's too many extra possessions.
Somebody asking about ratio tonight. I mean, State's going to bring some people, but it's not. My prediction is State brings fewer people tonight than Auburn brings on Saturday.
Agreed.
They just don't go into the other place to high levels like that, especially when the other team is good and you're expecting to lose. You're not going to drive 2 hours to watch your team lose in that arena. I mean, you're just not.
Well, and look, to credit to Auburn for a minute. Bruce Pearl's built a program there that it's hard to get tickets. Mm-hmm. And so there are a lot of
they go on the road.
Auburn fans. The way to go see Auburn is to go on the road, and so they buy road
tickets. There's some poor man Kentucky to that from a fan standpoint.
That's a great
out.
It's a great analogy. Yeah, it's not like Kentucky where it's like okay, we can't get into Rupp, so we're going to send 7,000 people to Nashville. Not like that, but there is an element of that to Auburn, and then the fact that that's a Saturday, people made it a trip. And they bought some tickets, and it's a credit to Bruce. And Bruce has been there a while, and he's a really good coach. And he and Chris have a lot of respect for one another, and you'll probably hear that later in the week. But I agree with you. I mean, State will have 1,000 fans there, maybe at the most.
Maybe, yeah. I mean, I would probably go under, but that's a great over/under.
Yeah.
Well, because frankly, Ole Miss fans are showing up, so there's not a lot of tickets. I mean,
yeah.
Your upper bowl is all that's really available. So I just don't think there's a lot of area. I haven't seen whether it's a hard sellout. I know Saturday is a hard sellout against Auburn.
Saturday's a hard sellout. I think this one tonight is basically sold out. I mean, I'm sure there's some straggle tickets available, but I don't think there's many.
Kyle Wilson, thanks for the super chat, says, do you think the SEC will do a subscription service to watch old games, maybe by school? I think they're leaving money on the table. If you have a library of that somewhere, I don't know why they would do that. Do I think there's some huge market for it? No. But, I mean, if you already have the games, what difference would it make? Find a way to, if nothing else, put them on ESPNU or, ESPN Plus or something. I mean, what difference does it make? I mean, it's one of the reasons why it's a completely different model, but it's one of the really key elements to that Netflix WWE thing because the library of old events that Peacock has is a huge part of that moving forward on what's going to happen, where are those going to go, and what that's going to look like. Because for wrestling fans, the old libraries of WrestleManias and Royal Rumbles and SummerSlams and all those things are huge, huge components of what they sort of enjoy with that as time goes on. Grind mentioned it. Jerry Palm, bracketology expert, obviously from CBS, long time expert in analytics and projecting these things. He does. He has 8 seeds that are really fascinating, including both these teams tonight in this basketball game. He has Ole Miss projected as an 8 seed in the Midwest, facing 9 seed Utah in the first round. I guess technically second round, and then Purdue waiting on the winner of a play-in game, and then the winner of Ole Miss and Utah. And a not the one you want if you got to get a matchup, but it's Purdue's front court would pose quite the issue for the Rebels. So that would be a bit of a problem.
Yeah, Chris would lose some sleep trying to figure out how to contain Zach Edey and those guys on the boards.
Yeah,
that would be that'd be a scout right there.
It's gravy though. Look, hey, if you play Purdue in the NCAA tournament, mission accomplished.
Oh, I mean, in all seriousness, I mean, if you could make that come to fruition.
Hey, Chris, you're an 8 seed and you beat Utah in the first round.
Yeah, you're playing Purdue on the first Saturday or Sunday of the tournament. That would be such a remarkable accomplishment when you consider where they were. That's my thing. I've caught myself kind of playing the role of therapist a little bit with a handful of people that I know. I'm like, who are worried about it. I'm like, enjoy the fact that you're going to a game tonight, right? That a year ago, by this point, it was over. Literally, it was like, okay, well, what's the path to the NCAA tournament? Go to Nashville and win 5 games in 5 days. That's your path.
Cut down a net. That's it.
The rest of this is meaningless, and if you think that group's capable of doing that, man, I admire your optimism. I really do. I mean, we're not having that conversation. That's the conversation we had for like 3 years in a row, really. And now, hey, it's a big game. I mean, it's a quad 1/quad 2 opportunity. It's a big chance for both teams. I mean, if you're State, this is a big opportunity. You get a chance to get what probably will end up being a top 50 road win if you could get it. Mm-hmm. And for Ole Miss, it's a chance to get a top 40 to top 50 home win. It's a chance to get to 5-3 in the league. It's a chance to make that Auburn game on Saturday let it all hang out and see what happens kind of game. So there's a lot there, and if I'm an Ole Miss fan, I'm excited by that because it has not been the case for a while. It's been by the end of January, and the calendar flips here in about 48 hours. By the end of January, the last few years, the season was over.
I went with Palm because he has updated his bracket since the Saturday night win against Texas A&M. Lenardi looked like a midweek update versus Palm. In that Midwest, Duke, the 4 seed. We'll just talk college basketball for a minute. Give me Duke on an early exit. They are getting Notre Dame football treatment right now, where they have the loss to Arkansas. They've lost a couple weird games in the ACC. That league is not very good overall. That's a first, second round loss team on Duke. That team is not making a run.
I think you're right, and I'm pulling this up as we do it because I'm kind of curious on something. Their record, though, in quad 1 games is
so they beat good teams and lost to bad teams.
Yeah, a little bit. I'm pulling up their stuff. Bear with me 1 second. They're 18 in the net. Here's what's interesting about them, Chase. This is wild. They're 5-1 quad 1, 0-3 quad 2.
They're going to be slotted 1 to 2 lines higher than they should be.
Yeah, probably so. So, right now they would be a 5, a 4 if you were to – they'd be a 5 if you went straight by net. So, they probably would be a 4 right now. That's just a fascinating number. They're 16-4 overall. They've got the 0-3 in quad 2, but 5-1. Is it 5-1 or 6-1? 5-1 in quad 1, 6-0 in quad 3, 6-0 in quad 5-0 in quad 4. For the people who don't follow college basketball, it's all about what you do in quad 1 and quad 2, and a whole lot about what you do on the road. Duke is 4-2 on the road, 2-0 on neutral sites, 10-2 at home.
Good resume.
Yeah, it's a solid resume. I mean, the loss at Arkansas just is bizarre, but it happened so early in the season, and frankly, I think it happened before some of the drama that's happening inside that team. So it's gonna look bad at the end of the year. But you can get away with a bad road loss. It's bad home losses that smoke you.
I mean, it's the funniest part of all this is it wouldn't have changed anything about what Chris Beard has done or what they're capable of. Detroit Mercy makes that basket, and I'm not sure we're even having a conversation because they're winless on the season. They're like 0-23.
Yeah, and on the flip side, if they would have just played a little bit better at the end of the first half in Baton Rouge, they would have won that game, and we'd be having a completely different conversation about Ole Miss right now.
Yeah. Kentucky, the 3 seed currently in that Midwest bracket. So Ole Miss, Purdue, Duke, and Kentucky all in the Midwest. In Palms bracket, Marquette the 2 in that bracket. La Tech the 14. Your boys from Ruston there in the bracket. That is correct. South Carolina an 8 seed right now in the West. Auburn a 5 seed in the West right now. Auburn in this bracket, which means absolutely nothing. Playing Samford, playing the Bulldogs there, an in-state team. South Carolina playing Northwestern in an 8-9 game. The guy at Northwestern's done one hell of a job.
He has. Look, South Carolina would be in the tournament today. Period. They would be in the tournament today. Their net's a 49. They are 3-2 in quad 1, 3-0 in quad 2. They've got a quad 3 loss. That's what's keeping their net down a little bit. But they would absolutely be in the tournament if the tournament started today.
In the South, Houston, the number 1 seed. Mississippi State, as mentioned, an 8 seed as well. So Ole Miss and State, 8 seeds in bracketology today. They have Mississippi State playing St. Mary's College, the second best team out there in Gonzaga's conference. Baylor,
St. Mary's,
St.
Mary's is legit.
So that's a bad draw.
That would be a bad draw. Mississippi State goes into the game tonight, 37 in the net. They are 14-6 overall. They're 0-4 on the road, 6-0 on neutral sites, 8-2 at home. State is 3-4 in quad 1, 3-1 in quad 2. So pretty good resume. What's holding them down a little bit is they have a quad 4 loss.
That's Southern, right? In that weird game.
I think so, yeah.
They were up 11 with 2 minutes to go, and Southern went on a 12-0 run to win by 1.
Little behind the scenes thing here. This crossed my mind. We've not done this in 3 years. We've not done the things. We've been like, hey, when do we start previewing the baseball season, and how in the world can we do an hour and a half of college baseball every
on
day?
Tuesday? Catcher preview. Okay, good. Sweet.
So thank you, Chris Beard.
Yes, very much so. Creighton the 3, Oklahoma the 7, Tennessee the 2. There in the South region. By the way, Memphis is a site in the South this year. So we're banking on where something might be located. There is a Memphis first, second round games, and then Memphis. Speaking of, they are currently an 8 seed, but they're leaking oil a little bit. They got to get that thing together. They're in an 8-9 game against Nebraska in this bracket.
I bet you didn't watch any of their game against UAB.
I did because of the mic'd up thing. So I caught some because of that. Yeah.
In the second half of that game, UAB beat them so badly in transition. I mean, some of the gaffes were just inexcusable. I mean, UAB just runouts after a made bucket. It was wild. I mean, he's got to clean them up from a fundamental standpoint, or they're not going to get there. Penny, that is.
Yeah. Is that all it is? I mean, they've just started playing poorly? I mean, no injury, no nothing else? I mean, because it's a noticeable problem for them right now.
They just don't play very well. They're talented. They look great running around, but they just don't play consistently good basketball. Like if they played in the SEC, they'd lose a bunch of games. They would just get out fundamentaled in a lot of games.
He would get out coached.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, he would. There was a noticeable difference in, and look, Andy, we're biased. We both like Andy as a person.
Sure.
And Andy's got TV experience, and he's really good at it. And if the coaching thing at any point stops working, the TV people will go throw money at him to come do TV. But just the difference in the coaching between Andy and Penny was obvious. And Andy was not a guy that he didn't like the SEC on fire. I mean, he had some. This is, again, we could do the whole net RPI thing and people would get upset. So there's no point doing it. But I think Ole Miss's RPI is like a 14 right now.
Oh, really?
Had they used like the old numbers, Andy would have made the tournament 3 or 4 more times.
Yeah. Yeah, that was the thing. The net it's still kind of infant. In its infancy so far, it has really benefited Power 5 teams. And yeah, look at Kermit's. I think it's the year Kermit had made it. Their net was in good shape. Their RPI was like 70. And they wouldn't even been in the conversation. They were an 8 seed instead because of the way it just moved and whatnot. Last thing on bracketology, your first 4, Texas is among them, Virginia Tech is among them, Michigan State among them in the first 4. And then again, your 1 seeds as of today, Purdue, UConn, North Carolina, and Houston. Your 2 seeds as of today, Wisconsin, Tennessee, Kansas, and Marquette. So those heading up all the brackets right now.
Yeah, Tennessee right now is a 4 in the net. Alabama's 7, Auburn's 9 among SEC schools. Kentucky is 23. Mississippi State's 37, Florida's 39, Texas A&M's 44. That was a big win for Ole Miss on Saturday. It was a really big win. And now you want A&M to keep winning. South Carolina's 49. Ole Miss enters the game tonight at 57, 1 spot back of Iowa.
Florida among the first 4 out right now at 14-6.
Yeah, so as there was a lot of Florida conversation yesterday on the message board. I've deeply apologized to everyone that I offended. Their schedule's pretty interesting. They're 39 in the net. They're 14-6 overall. I don't really understand how they are where they are, but they are 1-3 on the road, 4-2 on neutral sites. That's a positive. They're 0-6 quad 1, 4-0 quad 2. I don't understand how they are 39 with that resume, but they are.
I don't know the math. Not my area.
Math's not my forte, and somebody would have to sit down and really walk me through it.
Yeah, I mean it's the part of the whole numbers thing where like, hey, no, that RPI's rigged, and I'm like, I don't know. It's a formula. They just put stuff in there and spit it out, and it's. I did see. You probably didn't listen. I'm fascinated by this. They are D1 baseball, which is absolutely a thought maker in college baseball. They're debuting a new metric for college baseball this year, and it's like DSR, I think is what they're calling it. And they're trying to fix the baseball issues with RPI and net, and they're really, really optimistic that it's something that will move and potentially could change the way other sports are kind of done with some of these things too. It is doing things where it is essentially ranking every team based off numbers where we're not so held to just simply. It's going to fix the problem where if you play a team, you automatically fall 10 spots in the RPI and you're out of the tournament by simply playing the game. That it's going to establish a winning percentage expectation to a game, and you can still pick up a little bit of points in a very small margin by doing that versus you just automatically fall off the cliff otherwise. Does that make sense? Like you play Arkansas State, you're favored by 92%. Well, you still picked up 8% when you won.
Yeah.
Versus
so, the way it is now, whereas hey, you should cancel the game. Y'all should just say. Hey,
well, as we've talked about 1,000 times, if they had played Arkansas State in 2022, they don't make the tournament because even if they'd won the game 100-0, they would have fallen 5 spots in the RPI, and that would have ended their season.
Yeah,
Isn't
that crazy? I know you wrote a book about it, but literally. That was one of the craziest parts of that whole season. It
was the craziest part when you think back. It said, had they just played a game.
Yeah, had they just played that game, because they didn't do anything in Hoover. Had they played that game, they would not have made the tournament.
And I'm not 100% sure that Ole Miss cancels that game had Texas A&M not already canceled one the week before.
Oh.
Because it gave you a little bit of clearance on, hey, this is a thing.
Because that really wasn't Mike's style to do something.
No, he didn't want to do it.
Yeah.
I mean, Keith was running numbers while Ole Miss was sweeping LSU on that Saturday or Sunday. I know my camera's blurry. I hope it fixes in a second. I don't know what's going on. He was running numbers on that Saturday or Sunday and trying to go, okay, how bad is this? And Schlossnagle had already done that, and he calls Mike and goes, hey, look, I know we don't want to do this, but we can get out of the game for like $10,000. You in? It's like, that would be $10,000 worth spending. Yes, that would. And they also, Arkansas State didn't give a crap because they had just hired an AD from one of the guys at Alabama, a secondary AD at Alabama. Well, that dude had much bigger problems trying to get moved to Jonesboro than whether they played a midweek baseball game. So he was like, okay, sure, sounds good.
Yeah. No, it's really it's a remarkable story. It's the whole thing. The whole
fixing
thing
that is good.
Yeah, because you don't want people canceling games just to cancel to avoid a RPI or net hit. Can you imagine if we did that in basketball or football? It's like, I mean, can you imagine? Hey, Ole Miss, you got ULM scheduled for the third week of November.
Nah.
You really are better off not playing it. Hey, here's your $800,000. Just don't show. It would be so people would.
Well, I mean, we would have it in basketball if we played non-con games after December. It's what makes the two sports different, where you don't have that situation.
If you had Alabama A&M scheduled for senior night, and you're like, hey, let's not do that. That's going to hurt us. Mm-hmm. We can't, And if we happen to lose it, it's the end. Yeah, that's good. That's interesting because I don't know the college baseball thing is so hard to figure out because you do your schedules and it's still where there's such a disparity between the haves and the have-nots that you play.
And you're doing the schedule in some instances 3 years in advance.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh, okay. I mean, so we'll see. Because I tell you, the problem with RPI with baseball right now, and it's my last topic, I know nobody cares on January 30th with the game tonight like it is the home road is kind of geared like basketball, but it's not as important as in basketball. You can win road games in baseball because you have a pitcher. It's not so they punish road home too much in baseball. The metrics are not correct for that in RPI. That's one of the problems. Is that it's just not as hard to win a road baseball game as it is to win a road basketball game. But the numbers look very similar from how they grade those against each other. So they need to fix that. That's the deal.
Yeah.
Ole Miss, a 1.5-point favorite tonight against Mississippi State, and the over-under is 137.5 on this game. So just shy of 70 apiece if you were doing it that way.
State plays a lot of low-scoring games. They held Auburn to like 22 first-half points Saturday.
Mississippi State is 11th nationally in defensive efficiency.
Yeah, they're good. What are they offensively? Do you have it?
104 maybe? Yeah. I have it. I just got to find it. 1 second. Ken Palm, Mississippi State. No, sorry, 78. Adjusted efficiency, 78 offense, 11 defense.
Yeah.
Their issues are defensively. Their only really issue is they're very unlucky. Non-steal turnovers, meaning when the other team just throws the ball away. Mississippi State is 346 nationally in that. So teams have protected the basketball outside of forced turnovers against them. Oddly, it's two teams that are very unlucky because Ole Miss is 320th in that category.
Oh, wow.
But now it's a key for Ole Miss. Taking care of the basketball, Ole Miss 7th nationally. 7th.
Yeah. I mean, the only reason they have the 3 losses is that game at LSU. In the first half, they just gave the ball away for. They probably had 8, 9 unforced turnovers in that game. Real sloppy. They can't do that against any good team, but State included.
Ole Miss is 44th nationally in adjusted offensive efficiency and 103rd in adjusted defensive efficiency nationally.
Yeah, and the defensive efficiency issues are mostly the result of giving up offensive rebounds.
Yes. And obviously Ole Miss, because of Sharp especially, they are second nationally in defensive blocks.
Yeah. Yeah. He blocks a lot of shots.
I think it affects them on rebounding sometimes because they get out of rotation and out of space because they're going for blocks so much.
Hunting blocks.
That it kind of it moves them
Yeah.
and does different things. Now they just don't catch the basketball enough. I understand that's the primary problem, but yeah, Hardman mentioned this. I'm going to NFL in a minute, but it's whatever. We're bouncing all over the place. I can't. I'm not excited, but I can't decide if we're going to watch the new Roadhouse movie or if we're boycotting the new Roadhouse movie. I'm in a weird position here. I have not. I saw the cover. I have not seen the trailer. I am a little bothered they use the same name. Remaking a cult classic is risky, always. So I don't know. We'll see where I fall on this as time goes on. But
is that the arm wrestling thing?
No, the bouncer, Patrick Swayze, the double deuce.
Oh yeah.
Raiding the bar.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, big fat guy has a polar bear fall on him at the end. Yeah, not familiar with this.
I know I'm admitting people are going to make fun, but I don't think I've seen it.
Have you not seen it?
I don't think I have.
It's like perfect 80s popcorn action, dumb. Yeah, it's awesome. Rich guy basically owns the town, trying to infiltrate the honky tonk, and Patrick Swayze's been hired to clean it up. And he cleans it up. So Jake Gyllenhaal, I believe, is who is the new Patrick Swayze in this remake, reimagining of the picture, the film. I'm sorry, of the film.
Patrick Swayze certainly had his day. That's for sure.
He was doing all right for a little while.
There are probably a lot of high school girls that had Patrick Swayze posters on somewhere in their rooms. I'm guessing.
Yeah. Let's see. NFL. Again, I have not seen the AFC numbers, so if anybody has seen these, throw them to me. I did a Google search, and it doesn't look like they were out, at least as of this morning when I was doing prep. But the Lions-Niners numbers are out, and Sunday's NFC Championship game drew 56.6 million viewers, the most on Fox for that round since 2012. Numbers project to rank as the fourth most non-Super Bowl telecast in network history. The game's viewership is up 19% from last year's NFC Championship, which was between the Eagles and the 49ers. Let's see what other says. This is The Athletic speaking. Says one of the notable things about this viewership number, the most watched television program since last year's Super Bowl, is that it topped both of last year's conference championship games in a significant way. Last year's AFC Championship, which was a 6:30 Eastern window, averaged 53.1 for CBS for the Chiefs' win over the Bengals, and the early Sunday game averaged 47.5 million last year for Fox, their Eagles win over the 49ers. So that was a really, really good comparison. So 56 million for 49ers and Lions. So to put that into context on anything that's not NFL, is that Michigan and Washington did 25 million for the football championship in college, and that was less than half of the NFC Championship game.
It's just unbelievable, man. I mean, it's just such a part of Americana. And we love playoffs. I mean, I will say that I do think a year from now, when we're just dissecting the college football playoff numbers, they're going to be massive.
They're going to be good.
They won't be this massive.
And it's not misleading. I understand what they were doing, but Michigan, Alabama had a higher rating than Michigan, Washington. So that was not the highest ranked college game of the season, but that was still like 32 or something like that.
You don't think any of the TV executives noticed that, do you? Probably moving forward and go into next season. You don't think anybody said, "Hey, you know what? Let's make sure we have our SEC representation in this bad boy."
Yeah. Did you that Alabama number? What if that was in the finals? What would that have pulled? What do y'all think? Yeah. All good.
Yeah.
So you're saying when the playoff committee is getting together and going through numbers, and they said, "Hey, we We letting Georgia in, or we letting Boise State in? What are we doing?
I
We
mean, I
good
know
here?
what I'd say if I were in that room. I mean, I would be like, on so many levels, guys, this is a no-brainer. We can do the PC thing, or we can do the money thing. What are we in here for? And if you're in there for the money, I told you this. I want 5 SEC schools in that 12-team playoff. If I'm on that committee, I don't care who they are. I want 5 SEC schools in that playoff
Well, I
because
mean,
I'm going to get massive TV numbers for it.
you think Ole Miss finishing 5th was that in some way? I mean, not 5th, 10th.
Yeah.
Got them into an access.
I mean, yeah. What number what was the TV number on Ole Miss Penn State? I'm putting you to work here. I mean, I bet it was big. We got a huge crowd. Ole Miss took a gazillion people there. Penn State took a gazillion people there. Ole Miss took more than Penn State, but Penn State had a big crowd. If I'm on the committee, I want Big Ten SEC matchups. I want those teams. I don't want a bunch of the other stuff. I just don't.
It was 5th among all bowl games. 8 million, I think.
Yeah.
I think that's
for
right.
a game that in terms of nationally.
Well, and it was at 11 a.m. too. That's a killer on the ratings.
But I was just to finish the sentence. I mean, it was it didn't have any national meaning. It didn't have a playoff meaning to it. There was no advancement. It was just a game.
The Cotton Bowl, which matched Missouri and Ohio State on Friday, was the 4th most popular bowl game of the season, followed by the Peach Bowl with Ole Miss and Penn State, the 5th most popular of the bowl season.
Yeah, and the Cotton Bowl was the Friday night.
That's correct. Yes.
Yeah. It was on every sports bar in America.
Number 3 was the Orange Bowl.
And that was Saturday night.
Yeah, and that was Georgia Florida State, 63-3.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Everybody tuned into that.
Well, there'd been the big national narrative about Florida State, but it was football on a Saturday night.
Yeah, it was. Yeah. Put a game at 3, put a game at 7, show them.
Yeah, it was December the 30th. Yeah, it's not even.
Kyle, thanks for another super chat there. Appreciate you jumping in the thread this morning. This all does for the most, well, I guess let me set up a scenario for you on this. I was just thinking about, somebody mentioned it to me a couple days ago. Are they going to give complete benefit of the doubt where you stay highly ranked? And I think no divisions helps this. So let me kind of work through this thought for a second. The SEC championship game, the winner is going to get a bye. The loser can't get a bye. It has to be the top 4 conference champions. The loser, depending on situation, they'll still stay 5 to 7 or whatever they need for the home game, right? You wouldn't punish a fall in the SEC championship game to a road game, most likely.
I wouldn't think. I mean, because realistically, the 2 teams that go to Atlanta are going to be
2 losses max. I mean,
1 loss, no loss, maybe 2 losses. So I guess if you're a 2-loss team,
it would take a non-con second loss. Like if LSU lost to Florida State and then only lost to Alabama in league play or something.
Yeah. But realistically, if you get to Atlanta, you're going to the tournament. Tyler asked me, do I think the conference championship games get killed? And I don't.
Too much money.
That's what I think too. Those games are such money makers for the leagues.
Yeah, I just think it's too much money. I don't. Yeah, I can't make that make sense to me.
But I mean, your ideal place to finish, if you don't win the league and get the bye, your ideal place to finish is 3rd.
I'm going to float over to what I thought was a really interesting NBA topic in a second. Before I do that, did you see that some millionaire thinks he found Amelia Earhart's plane?
I did. I saw that. Yep.
See that? They're going to head back down again, but he believes some sonar stuff and what they called a blurry outline is Earhart's Lockheed 10E Electra near Howland Island, halfway between Australia and Hawaii. So,
can you imagine if they were able to find that plane and pull it up?
I don't know the answer to this. This is not my area. Would you be able to pull it up, or from a pressure and where it's sitting, is it going to disintegrate as you try to grab it?
My guess is it's already disintegrated quite a bit. But I don't. Again, I'm with you. I don't. That's not my area of expertise.
I mean, I know this is a dumb question, so people can make fun of me all they want to with this. Is it interesting that we're so captivated by this one plane crash for this many years?
I think it is interesting because what it puts in perspective is just how much of a celebrity she was at the time that happened.
Which we have no ability to directly compute.
Well, no, I mean, someone compared it the other day. They were having this conversation. And they said it's Taylor Swift falling off the face of the plane.
Okay.
Michael Jackson.
It's really fascinating technologically. I mean, again, I promise I'm moving on. We're rambling, and I'm in a weird mood this morning. Not even in a bad way. I'm actually in a pretty good mood. We went from an economy built on horses to flying in like 40 years. Like, think about that.
Yeah.
Like 1985 to 2025, we went from horses to flying.
What? Do you ever look at the pictures of like New York City 100 years ago?
Yeah, and you're like,
it looks nothing like it looks today. So I mean, we have this really inflated view of our time in the world, and in reality, I mean, what's New York or Los Angeles going to look like in 100 years, in 400 years? What's transportation going to be like? We can't fathom it, but it's probably going to look completely different. The cities will look completely different.
Mm-hmm. By the way, while I'm pulling up this NBA story, I guess in some ways, thanks to Outkick for the story yesterday. I've heard from people I haven't heard from in a while, so you expanded my friend group a little bit. I got a couple texts this morning from people I probably should have checked in with beforehand. They said, "Hold on a minute, what happened?" I was like, "Yeah, longer story that I'm gonna text you back right here, but it's all good, so it's fine." Let's see. By the way, speaking of women's basketball, Mississippi State knocked off Kim Mulkey and her Tigers in Starkville last night.
I saw that.
Yeah.
I didn't see the game, but I saw the score flash on the screen.
So this is fascinating to me because this happens in every sport. You saw what baseball did with its rule changes here in the last couple of years and things, and they've made the product better. Football has gone crazy protecting the offense, not even necessarily just protecting the quarterback with injuries, but in general making it a more offensive game. Did you see this John Hollinger story from The Athletic?
I don't think so.
Neil? Okay, so I'll set it up for you. Then I'm sure you'll want to go read it because you care way more about this than I do. But I still find it funny. So in the last week, here's what we've had. Embiid's had a 70-point game. Karl Anthony Towns has had a 62-point game. Luka's had a 73. Booker's had a 62. And then 4 other players have had 40-plus games. This is Hollinger. He says, points are fun. This week has been fun, but it mandates a question. Is there too much offense? He wrote a story about this, and here's what he said. Embiid, 36 points per game, is on pace to become just the second player in NBA history to average a point per minute. Wilt Chamberlain did it in 61-62 with 50 points per game. In the last decade, the average team's scoring has leapt over 15 points per game from 101 in 2013-2014 to 115.6 this year. Stretch that to 20 years, and we're up 20 points per game, 94 points per game in 2003-2004, and it has little signs of slowing. As teams hammer three-pointers and shots at the rim more than ever, the mid-range jumper's gone, defenses can't keep pace. Will we see another 15-point leap in the next decade? What does the game look like? Says, sure, it's fun now, but if we see more and more offense, the game, quote, slides into a farce, as John writes. Don't be surprised if you see off-season rule tweaks to help defenses out.
That's interesting. I disagree with the farce line. I think, and I watch a lot of NBA. In the last 3 weeks, I've watched tons of it. There's just so many. So it's two things. One, it's kind of like with baseball. baseball's so analytical, right? The way you pitch, the way swing, all that stuff, and it's completely changed the game. If you go back, like, God, I'm revealing how just much of I'm not cleared to drive yet, so I can't go anywhere. So I was watching a replay of a Cubs game from '84. It was
Okay.
Rick Sutcliffe was pitching. It was, I think, the day they clinched the NL East in '84. It's just completely different, Chase. The way the game's played, completely different. '84 to now. The way that pitchers pitched, the way that infielders were
Lineup
set up,
construction.
lineup
Kyle
construction.
Schwarber would have never let off even 10 years ago. You go, what
No,
the hell are you doing?
and everyone had a two-strike approach. Everyone. The game's completely changed. What changed it? Analytics. So if you watch basketball today, as opposed to, let's say, in the '80s when the Lakers and the Celtics were doing their thing, and Dr. J and all that stuff, there was a lot of mid-range. There are guys now who are just 3-and-D guys. I watched Thunder Timberwolves last night. It was a very defensive game. Wasn't a lot of points. But the Timberwolves have Naz Reid on the floor. He's 6'10". He's a three-point shooter. He stands out on the perimeter. They pass the ball around. Everything is about movement. He gets a shot. He shoots 40-something% from three. I don't know that he would have had a spot in the NBA in the '80s because they would have taken 6'11" guy and put him on the blocks. Well, his game in the blocks is pedestrian. He wouldn't have played. But so the NBA is so three-point oriented. Everything's about how you shoot the three. If you can't shoot it, you get played off the floor. The players are so skilled now. Like you see this with baseball, right? 30 years ago, if you were to go to interview the Ole Miss baseball team, all of those guys would have played football. They would have played basketball. They would have played other sports. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think if I sat down with the Ole Miss baseball team, I could do this with the top half of the SEC, and I ask all those guys, hey, what'd you play in high school? Their answer would be, I played baseball. I played baseball year round. That's what I did. I played baseball. And so you get that with basketball players now. They just specialize in basketball. And so they're incredibly skilled with their dribble, their ability to penetrate, all those things. I just think defense is harder now. I don't know what rules you could really change that are going to take that away. I mean, guys like Luka and Embiid are just so incredibly skilled. But am I right on that? If I interviewed the Ole Miss baseball team today, how many of the 35 guys played another sport in high school?
Oh, high school?
Yeah, in high school.
Yeah, almost all stopped by at least their sophomore year, even if they did.
Yeah,
Yeah.
all of them. They specialized in baseball.
Yeah.
Basketball's the same way. Well, 30 years ago, if I were to do that with the Ole Miss baseball team, half of them or more would have played football. They would have played basketball. Hell, they would have played both football and basketball. Baseball would have just been a spring and summer thing.
Yeah, you can't make a team not do the thing that is analytically advantageous. That is impossible. So, yeah, what does that look like? I don't know. But I thought,
Yeah. I know people say the NBA, they don't play defense. I just disagree. I mean, if you watch the games, if you watch the top half of the league in the regular season, there's a hell of a lot of defense played. But you have to be so good on defense to limit NBA teams from scoring. They know how to move the ball. They know where guys shoot well. They put those guys in those spots. The game is it can be almost robotic because you know where people are going to get their shots. And, like guarding Anthony Edwards, for example, without fouling Anthony Edwards is incredibly difficult. Mm-hmm. Guarding Karl Anthony Towns when he has the basketball without fouling Karl Anthony Towns is very difficult. There just aren't that many people that can do it.
Speaking of the NBA, if you need something for an hour prior to Ole Miss and Mississippi State tonight, kind of interesting game at 6:30. You got the NBA, I think probably their best team in the Celtics. They are playing at home against the Pacers, which just picked up Siakam tonight. The Pacers 27-20 overall in the season. So
Yeah. I watched Boston last night against the Pelicans. That's an example. Boston plays really good defense. That's why they are where they are. Minnesota's number one in the West, and the reason they're number one in the West is because they're such a strong defensive team. They have guys that protect the rim so well, and Gobert and Towns, and they've got active wings that can guard. That's why they are where they are. It's not because of offense. I mean, Edwards is a very good offensive player, but he's not elite.
was looking just last thing here. Line on the Super Bowl. San Francisco is a 1.5 point favorite on an open. So
I'm betting on the Chiefs.
47.5 is the over under right now.
Because if you're the NFL, you want Taylor celebrating. She's going to get there, Chase.
I did see that it was going to be easy for her to get there. She'll be even there the day before, around 5-6 o'clock p.m.
You know, I read a story yesterday that it's a brutal flight. It really is. It's a brutal flight, but she's going to do it to be there for her boo. She's going to be there. It's a brutal flight getting on a private jet and flying from Tokyo to Las Vegas in luxury. Brutal. She's going to do it, though.
Now, could be jet lagged all to hell.
I mean, yeah. But she'll
jet
sleep.
lagged.
It's not like she's going to be cramped up in a middle seat. She's going to
not flying economy class.
Probably going to have a place to go lay down and take a nice rest. Probably going to be well fed, hydrated. She'll be a little tired, but you know what? It'll be worth it to see the love of her life compete for a Super Bowl.
Chiefs win. He proposes on the field. Highest ratings in TV history.
He's going to drop to a knee right there amongst the confetti.
Mash, eat your heart out.
Oh, what a moment. It'll make the Office finale just look like nothing. Nothing.
Yeah.
You think she'll say yes?
I don't know. If she won't, he's not asking. I promise you that. It will be it will be a completely known entity at that.
How good would it be if he drops to his knee and she says, "No, come on, this has all been a farce, man. The season's over now." That'd be great.
Whew. Last thing, I'm again jumping all over the place. Suits is now the most streamed television program. Here's what I found interesting about this, and I'm closing. I've got to a point. So in 2023, via Netflix, people streamed Suits for 57.7 billion minutes. That broke a previous record set by The Office, and then a previous record set by Stranger Things for a single year from a streaming standpoint. Ted Lasso, number one spot in original program streaming, because Suits has been over since 2019. We rewatch more than we watch new, though, by far. Despite Ted Lasso being the number one original program streaming, it was not in the top 10 overall for streaming minutes. Now, part of that is also fewer episodes. You're watching the new episodes, not 10 seasons worth of content, but still.
Did you ever watch Ted Lasso?
Yeah, I finished it.
Okay.
We talked about it. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I gave the finale
Campbell,
like a B.
My daughter Campbell watched it. She didn't think she would like it, and she got totally into Ted Lasso. Loved it, which was interesting.
Really?
Yeah.
If you changed one thing from the final arc, what would it be?
Whew. I don't know. I thought. I mean, are we spoiling here for people?
Okay, we're done with the show today. It is over. We're literally spending 90 seconds on Ted Lasso, and then we're hanging up. The Rebels and the Bulldogs tonight, 7:30 from the Pavilion. Content, rebelgrove.com.
Okay. I thought him going back to his ex-wife presumably back in Kansas without anything to do. I didn't like it.
That's my answer too, is that there did not appear to be a career involved in any way. So this dude who's been successful in coaching in 2 different sports and all these different things, he's just coaching a youth soccer team and working at the department store. What are we doing?
Yeah, it's what bothered me was, okay, so this guy, if we're to put this in real life terms, he goes over to England, learns a new sport, and because of his ability to motivate people, his ability to get people to care, his ability to get people to believe, he's super successful. They make the English Premier League, and then he leaves because he's missing time with his son. I get it. I get that completely. But so you just go back to Kansas?
You could have solved all this with a 5-second shot of the sidelines, there being a Wichita State coaching bag on the sidelines or something. It said he went back to his old job even. He's coaching football. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, sure, he's coaching his kid's soccer team, but hey, here's his job. He's doing this.
Yeah, or maybe he's coaching an MLS team.
Yeah, whatever.
Bringing soccer to America on a higher level. I don't know, something that, and then, I mean, the whole thing of them getting back together, I guess, it's fine, whatever. It didn't strike me as particularly realistic. I think I would have preferred that he found a love interest in England that captivated him more.
Now, great job not being Rebecca. Don't do that. That was that was good. And I'm like, fine, but even a little whatever on her and the way that finished with her romantic entanglement.
I was okay with hers.
Yeah.
She was seeking and she found, and
okay.
I mean, they did that deal where the scene where it's early in the morning and you see Ted coming to get a cup of coffee and she's there in her robe and stuff, and you're like, oh no, you guys didn't do it. And then they
played it. Yeah, they played off of it. Yeah.
Because I was guessing, but then but generally I was pleased with it. I liked it. I thought they did a really good job. I mean, when you're trying to, because I'm assuming that show's over, right? That there's not going to be a spinoff. They left themselves room for a spinoff. But if you're trying to put a neat bow on all of those characters, there was probably no way to really make it all work. And it felt like it was a little rushed. So a couple of those things were like loose. To me, that's the beauty of the Office thing, is that the Office finale gave you closure on literally every character, which was brilliant writing if you think about it.
It's almost impossible
to put that in an hour show to where you get closure on Aaron and Angela and Creed and everybody, not just the main 3 or 4 people, not just Dwight, but everybody. You got Jim and Pam. You get closure on Andy and everybody. That was to me brilliant writing.
Just a final word here, if anybody out there wants a podcast recommendation, I've listened to the debut of this. It's under the Prestige TV podcast channel on the Ringer, but it's called Stick the Landing. And what they're doing, this first episode was, I think Greenwald is hosting every time, but he had Amanda Dobbins with him. And they are taking an hour and a half to analyze series finales of whether they stuck the landing. The show is Stick the Landing. And they open with Friday Night Lights. That was the first one they did, was Friday Night Lights. But they're pretty good stuff so far from them, if y'all are into pop culture in that way or care about that in any capacity. So, all right, Bulldogs, Rebels, 7:30 Pavilion, coverage rebelgrove.com. Anything else in the meantime? I'm still continuing some of my conversation with Keith Carter in written form, and then we'll have more to you as the week goes on as well. So back here, same place in the morning, and we'll discuss whatever happens tonight from the Pavilion. Again, 7:30, Rebels and Bulldogs. Take care, and we'll talk to you soon.